Everybody give it up and welcome Derek Watkins.
On November 3rd, I had surgery at Sinai Hospital. Last year, in that same time frame, my father and I went to Sinai Hospital to learn that he didn't have much longer to live. The irony in that was that my father was absent. He had never been in my life. He had rejected me and told me for years that I wasn't his. He ridiculed me and he turned his whole family against me. But there was this inkling that I had inside myself that once he got to know me, he would love me. And I never lost that. And as tragic as our experience was, there was something really poetic about it and something romantic about it. And there was something sweet about it, and there was something innocent about it. As if he had dropped me off at school every day from the time I was 3 till I graduated high school. He started reaching out to me. And he wasn't asking for much, and I wanted to give him everything he wanted. But it was a process, and I was on a step that just wasn't quite there yet. But because of our blood bond, he needed something from me, something only I could give, something transcendental, something ethereal. And this time, we had just become reacquainted for about 13 years, because each turning point in my life, I reached out to him. And I wanted to, even I remember the day I got my driver's license, and I don't want to use the word stole, but I kind of did. I stole my grandfather's car when he went to sleep, and I remembered Cherry Hill. I hadn't been there in 8 years. And I drove to Cherry Hill, and I remembered my father's mother's apartment, and I knocked on the door, and I knew his voice. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, I just took my driver's license out of my pocket. I was so proud, I was 16, and put it up at the peephole. And he said, "Nigga, I told you I ain't your father." And I just remember sitting on the steps, saying that if he just felt me, that he would want to be my father, because I'm a great fucking kid, right? It had just been 13 years since we had become reacquainted, because I found him. And each of those years presented these crazy currents, from his epic cussings out to his historic and heartfelt well wishes. It was kind of bipolar, like, me too. And his sentiments were always real to me. If real is real, because I don't even know anymore whether real is real. And our conversations usually started off nicely as they could, between two broken black men whose love and confidence were inextricably bound, hard for each to share and even harder for each to receive. "Hey, Derek, I heard you was gay." We don't make no blisters in this family. We don't make no gay people. So I spent my life trying not to be a blister, trying not to be gay, and hating blisters, and hating gay people. The endings of our conversations, sometimes they were just plain old endings, but most times they were grand finales intended to, in his own words, destroy me. But I ate his blows, and with each I became a superpower, stronger than my father, yet molded and shaped by his rejection. And he reveled in being a villain. His lashings out were fierce, leaving scars that burnt like fire even after they were healed. And on bad days, crack and heroin gave him the guts to face the parts of me, or the parts of himself and his father that he hated, the parts he now saw in me. And like a snake hungry for the kill, each time he remembered that he might love me, he just lunged for my jugular. He knew no boundaries. He talked about oral sex with my mother. He talked about stealing from grocery stores. He talked about having a big coat and putting all kinds of medicines in it from Walmart. He talked about all the sex he had and all the drugs he did and how much fun it was. And I wasn't ever shocked by his words, because I soon realized that he was a 21-year-old boy trapped inside of a 68-year-old man's body. And he was a failure by most standards. But he was a legend to too many to feel unjustified in living his life unapologetically. And his grand slam was always the same. And it was a grenade. My sister's here, she can tell you. Nigga, you ain't my son no way. You don't even look like me. But I ate that too because I always knew that Leslie Lynn Allen was my father, even when I did not want him to be. And on the rare occasions we spoke, our conversations were one-dimensional. His eyes were short and inappropriate. His mouth saying things about my sisters, things fathers simply should not say about their daughters. Weeks had passed and he called, he left messages. But I wouldn't listen to them because I couldn't. And I felt the spirit of transformation all around me, and I knew something prophetic was on the horizon. And when I got the nerve, I called my Aunt Carolyn, and I said, "Is something wrong with my father?" And she said, "They think it's prostate cancer, Derek." I said, "Really, God?" So our father and son experiences played in my head like a movie on fast forward. And images of the two of us, ones that really happened and the ones I made up to stay alive, spun in a circle. And I recalled how just a few weeks prior, he had begged me to stop being gay. "Derek, you really need to cut all that gay shit out. You don't even act like them, man. You don't look like them. I'm trying to see you in heaven." So, because I am gay, that little twinkle of a thing came out of me. And I said, "Let me get this right. You telling me that God is going to accept a dope addicted, womanizing, thieving, absent father before a gay man who loves and dedicates his life to his people?" I said, "Well, Father, I guess I'll see you in hell." And this is the part that makes me emotional, so forgive me. But what happens to the sons of absent fathers when our absent fathers reach out to us as they are dying? When the only connection we have to our fathers, the collection of pain and anger and fear and hurt and confusion, is threatened. When losing those things means losing your father, and when losing your father means losing yourself. On November 26th, 2 days before his birthday, 3 generations of Allen men, myself, my father, and my son, hung out. Leslie, my father, met us at his main apartment door in Park Heights. He was frail now, about 6'1" and 120 pounds. His face, barely recognizable, bore the signs of anxiety and fear. He used a walker, moving slowly and in pain, and he wouldn't look into my eyes for too long, about a second at best each time. And as we rode the elevator up, my throat got heavy, and I fought feeling unjustified in my sadness, and I fought feeling undeserving of my heartbreak because I barely knew him. So Sakai, my son, and I went in ahead of my father, and he told us to go sit down in his living room, and we did. But when he took too long, I went back out to check on him. And he was down the hallway, standing still in deep thought, or so it appeared to me. And our eyes met, and I couldn't hold it any longer. And he noticed, and for the first time ever, intentionally became my father. And I cried like a baby, admitting, I said, "You don't know how hard this is for me, man." And his response was classic Leslie. "No, Derek. None of that punk shit. No crying. You ain't no bitch, nigga. No crying." So I pulled my tears back in, the same way I had commanded my son to when he told me his favorite colors were pink and purple. go ahead in, Derek, I'm coming. I did what he said, but I looked back first, and he had stopped about 20 feet down the hallway. And his skin and bone hands were now squeezing his walker, and his head hung down, swinging left to right. And when he looked up, he noticed me staring, and he said one word, Derek. And I knew what it meant. I knew that it meant he was sorry. And our eyes locked, and in that moment, we had traveled someplace where all I could see and feel was him. And in that moment, we had bonded the way I bonded with Sakai, my son, the day he was born. And in that moment, I had become his father, as he had become my son. The next day, I took Leslie to his doctor's appointment at Sinai, ironically. He was belligerent. He even tried to get me kicked out of the hospital when I told the doctor he was lying about his weight loss. But we laughed through all the pain, and out loud we laughed. The doctor wanted to perform a biopsy, but Leslie had decided that he was ready to die. After his appointment, my father went to get his prescription. We went to get his prescription filled, and I left him in the car. But when I returned to my car, Stevie Wonder was blasting. And my father was dancing. He was sick. He couldn't really dance, but he said, hey. And I came in with some Butter Crunch cookies. And he said, you're not going to share? And I gave him one of my cookies. And he said, and we stared at each other. And he said, Derek, I have a question for you. And I said, yes. He said, I want to say thank you. But I could tell by the tone of his voice and the longer in his eyes that his thank you meant something different. I could tell that it was a greater thank you, an umbrella thank you. And on that evening in my car, my father looked me in my eyes as he had never before. And he asked a question that would heal us from the tumultuous journey that we shared. Derek, can I have a hug? And we hugged so tightly over that emergency break. And on Wednesday, December 21st at 2:54, while at work, I felt a piece of me come out of me. And I knew that my father had died. I sent myself a text message. But what happens to the sons of absent fathers when our fathers die? My father had no funeral, but I got to say my goodbyes before his cremation. And in a quaint room, he laid atop a cold stainless steel gurney in a plastic garment bag, zip it up to his neck. And in that moment, I touched his face, and it was cold, but it was still soft. And in that moment, I got to see how vulnerable he was and how special our relationship was. And I wanted to hate him. I did. I wanted to look at him and hate him. But I couldn't because I didn't. And I knew that he had, in that moment, done the best that he knew. And that he made me who I was and who I am. So, what happens to the sons of absent fathers? We become good fathers. We become good men. We become teachers. We take care of our brothers' children. We tell people that we love them. We become good lovers. We struggle, but we achieve and we overcome. And I just want to thank you guys for your attention.